Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. IDSF is a movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning in to these briefings. It is very important to us at IDSF that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the source, experts on the ground here in Israel who know what is going on and can share their opinions and analysis with you in these very direct and candid briefings. If you have any questions during this briefing, please, of course, feel free to enter them into the chat. We are joined today by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, as well as Ariel Kahana, Senior Diplomatic Commentator for Israel Hayom. General, we'll start with you. What can you tell us about the progress of the war right now in Gaza?
So our forces at the moment have completely detached the northern part of Gaza from all the other parts. We reached with the Golani Brigade the sea. Gaza already 2-3 days ago was completely surrounded, the city itself. And now our forces are pushing forward and conquering the Gaza city itself. There is fierce fighting in the streets. The Air Force is attacking, really dramatic attacks in assistance to our ground forces. The combat engineers are uncovering tunnels and destroying them. There are more than 20,000 terrorists killed until now, and it's just the beginning. As I said, from day one, we're going to kill all of them. And we have seen the spokesman of the army in the last days again and again talking about the terror infrastructure inside Shifa Hospital. Why is this important? Because we have to educate the world about really what Shifa Hospital is all about. Why? Because we're going to conquer this place. We're going to arrive there. We're going to uncover all this infrastructure. There are many challenges. How to deal with the very complex underground infrastructure and all the IEDs and all the traps and everything that's going on. Our warriors, we are seeing, learning really how Hamas is organized and operating, and the lessons learned are sent to all the soldiers. Occasionally, we have some tactical mistakes due to them. Occasionally, we also have soldiers killed, or injured, but we learn from this. We really make sure that the lessons are learned and everybody understands what needs to be done and how to do it the right way. And really warfare is a lot about who learns more faster. How do you adapt to a very complex environment? And I think we're doing it well. Today in the morning, I tweeted in Hebrew that we shouldn't take seriously the speech of Nasrallah, which was like really weak because he's preparing surprises and we need to be proactive. Just now, Hezbollah shot more than 30 Grad rockets to the area northern of Haifa, which is really not near the border. It's near Haifa city. So Hezbollah is scaling its actions, and this might bring us to a full-scale war with Hezbollah. We have to be ready for that. The chief of staff visited our forces in the north, and he said, we might be on our way to a war also with Lebanon. The question is not whether it's going to be, the question is when. Are we going to be able to finish all our missions in Gaza? Or not, or have to fight in two fronts or even more fronts, because we have Yemen, we have militias in Syria, we have many challenges. So the situation in the north is very, very tense. And looking at the citizens, I've been speaking in the last few days to citizens around Israel and met many of them who went out of their homes in the north, who left Kiryat Shmona and all the kibbutzim and moshavim. And these guys are saying, we're not going back. If the government of Israel and the IDF don't remove the danger of Hezbollah in the north, we're not going back. So I think that really, I think that the citizens, the people who live in the towns in the south and in the north, they're pretty much going to shape Israel's solutions and strategy, because they are very clear. They want to live a safe life. They're not going to take chances anymore. And this will require us to really operate. At the moment, talking about the international situation, we see on one hand many governments supporting Israel, but we see Muslims and anti-Semites all over the world rioting, and we see really pictures that we haven't seen since the Holocaust, attacking Jews, putting signs on Jews' houses. And we understand that anti-Semitism is spreading very, very fast. And it's alarming. And it only emphasizes more how important it is to make Israel a safe haven, to really, really deal with all the challenges we have. We have forces operating in Judea and Samaria, doing a very good job. I think by now more than 1,500 terrorists apprehended. Occasionally there is a terror attack, but overall the situation there is at the moment under control. What worries me is that if we enter into a full-scale war with Hezbollah, this might also motivate Israeli Arabs and Palestinians in Judea and Samaria to enhance and to really start attacking. So we are really fast building all the squads in all the cities and the towns. We are arming civilians everywhere. The police and the Ministry of National Security are weaponizing the society, training them, building squads everywhere, hundreds of squads. Also, the Home Front Command that sends soldiers to all the cities and towns. Even, in my town, in Caesarea, which is really a place that nothing serious really happens, we have like a company of the Home Front Command. And we also have more than 80 people armed. And this is not really like a frontier. And so imagine what's going on in other places. So the society overall is mobilized and getting ready for maybe even more complex situation that we have experienced until now. The army is buying huge amounts of equipment, but this equipment, all of it comes in a day. So we are day by day enhancing the equipment of all our forces. There are places where equipment lacks. We see it in the north. We see it with the battalions in Judea and Samaria. The only ones that were really fully equipped are the forces that went into Gaza. And they are fighting really well. In every single engagement with terrorists, the IDF has the upper hand. and we are really killing them by the dozens and hundreds every day. But it's a tough war. It's a tough war. They're fighting. It's not that we broke, they haven't surrendered. They are very ideological and they are fighting, but we are much better than them. So we're advancing and really doing the job. So Moshe, if you want, Ariel is with us.
Yes. Okay. So thank you again to all of our viewers for sending in your questions. We're going to get to them, but first we're going to go to Ariel Kahana. Thank you so much, Ariel, for joining us. I'd like to ask you a question. Today you had an article that you published in Yisrael Hayom, and you used a term in Hebrew. I hope I get its translation right. Denazification. Are you able to discuss that and maybe elaborate on what you meant?
Hello, Moshe and Amir and everyone. Thanks for having me. Yes, denazification means that actually it is understood by Israeli leadership, and maybe not only Israeli leadership, that the people of Gaza has to be re-educated about basic human values, just as it was necessary to tear up Nazism from Germany after World War II, or the extreme ideology in Japan after World War II. Just the same, it becomes more and more clear to Israeli leadership, but not only Israeli leadership. We'll go to that in a minute. That the people in Gaza has to be re-educated about basic human values of not doing such horrible things as they did. Now, it is very important to emphasize that it is not only, a group of terrorists. We are talking here about, I'm sorry, but about a people that took part in this horrific pogrom. Because if you saw the pictures, you could see thousands of Palestinians from Gaza, many of them not soldiers of Hamas. All of them took part in the pogrom, including in the most horrible actions of beheading babies. And those who did not participate were very, very, very happy. Now, I'm not saying, definitely, I'm not saying that all the Palestinians in Gaza are supportive of Hamas. Actually, many of them are suffering under Hamas regime. But at the same time, we have to remember that Hamas regime was elected in a democratic process many years ago. We never saw, in 18 years of Hamas controlling the Gaza Strip, we never saw any kind of demonstrations, rebel, like we saw, for example, in Iran or even in China. We never had that in the Gaza Strip. And in polls, we see not only in the Gaza Strip, but also in Judea and Samaria, and actually all over the world, we can see a strong support for Hamas. So this extreme barbaric ideology has to be deleted from the world and definitely from the Gaza Strip. And therefore, Israel is determined that in the day after, there will be a re-education of the population over there, of the next generations in Gaza, how to behave in this world. Now, as I said before, it's not only in Israel. Just a few minutes ago, there was a speech by the European Union leader, Mrs. Van Holder, if I'm saying right the name. She was talking just similarly about the necessary not to have Hamas regime in Gaza in any way, and not to have those extreme ideologies in Gaza, because all in all, it was not only a military operation or a war. It's the ideology that pushes all what we saw in Gaza. So that's another goal to the day after.
Thank you. There's an IDSF researcher by the name of Eli Ossian. He's been widely quoted across the news stations, and he talks about how this ideology is not just held by Hamas, but it's pervasive in all of Arab societies surrounding us. So I don't know if you agree with what Eli says. I wish we could have him on our briefing, but he doesn't speak English. But so how do you re-educate an entire population like that?
So first of all, you take out UNRWA, the agency which is supposed to take care of Palestinian refugees, never took care of them. What UNRWA did under the mandate of the United Nations is just from one generation to another, to go on with all this ideology of keep fighting with Israel and never reach a peace with Israel. You know, UNRWA was established in 1949, which means 4 years after the end of World War II. After the end of World War II, we had millions of refugees all around the world. The United Nations Agency for Refugees, which is not UNRWA, it's another agency, took care of all those millions. And about 10 years after World War II ended, millions of refugees in Europe and in other places resettled in new places. That did not happen with the Palestinian refugees because UNRWA didn't care about solving the problem. What UNRWA did and still doing is promising the problem will still be here forever. And not only they want the problem not to be solved, they help Hamas actually. They give their infrastructure to Hamas and they educate young Palestinian children to kill Jews. And therefore, first step is to take UNRWA out of Gaza. And then again, I don't know, and I think nobody knows what's going to be the regime in Gaza in the day after. It's not going to be Hamas, that's for sure. It will probably not be the Palestinian Authority, which is actually pushing the same ideology, just maybe in more, gentle way. But they want Israel to be vanished as well. So whatever or whoever is going to control Gaza the day after, whether it's going to be, I don't know, an international forces, United Nations forces, European forces, American, I don't know who's going to control the Gaza Strip the day after. But whoever it's going to be, he will surely have to take care about the education of the young people in Gaza, because that is the only guarantee for having peace with the Palestinian population. And if I may say, Moshe, and it's very important to me to say, because you were talking about the entire Arab population. So I must emphasize that, first of all, we have quite many Arab Israelis who are Zionists, who are helping Israel, who are fighting with the IDF against Hamas. And not only we have Arabs who are pro-Israeli, we have, as we remember, we have peace with few countries, including the Emirates, Bahrain, and others. And especially about the Emirates, I can tell you, this is an Arab country which really want peace. The Emirates has, I would say, a wide and deep ideology of supporting peace. So it tells you that it's not because of they are Arabs. Oh no, it depends on the ideology and the beliefs you have. And once you have the I would say a modern, not barbaric way of life. You have just, simple humanity of how to behave, because, it's not so sophisticated not to kill another person. It was written in the Bible, right? So once you just have these basic rules, 10 amendments, if you want, we can have peace. But for that, you need a counterpart in the other side. So we do have it in some Arab countries. And I hope one day we will also have it with the Arabs who are living in the land of Israel.
Okay, thank you so much. And I certainly did not mean to lump the entire Arab world into one big category. So thank you so much for clarifying. General, if we can go back to you on a question, you mentioned how many terrorists have been killed thus far. Are you able to elaborate about what numbers are still present? Meaning, how many more terrorists? How many more?
Yesterday it was like 20,000. But they're like, 50, 60,000. So we have a long way to go. But really, what we see on daily basis, hundreds of terrorists killed. I think it's because the work between the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army is very, very, very effective. Are doing a very good cooperation and managing to really hit precisely the terrorists.
Are there any updates in terms of the Egypt border and what's happening in terms of supplies coming in or potentially people going out?
So supplies are coming in all the time, talking about medicine, food, water. We are insisting on not enabling to bring gasoline used for the tunnels and for the vehicles of Hamas. And this is something we need to really make sure that doesn't go in. But there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and this is important to understand. Most of the people that live in North Gaza left to the south. In the south, there is constant humanitarian aid. They don't lack anything. Hamas, unfortunately, is preventing from some of the population to move south, even shooting them or using them as human shields. You have terrorists running with children on their hands so they don't get shot. These guys are pure evil, monsters. And this is why they need to be eliminated. We are not going to take risks with our soldiers. We keep the soldiers safe. We're doing everything within our hands not to have collateral damage, but not at the expense of the life of our soldiers.
Okay, if we can move to the northern border. So, General, if I understood correctly, you're saying war is imminent on the northern border. It's just a question of when.
Yes, because I think get our way, and let's say we do all Gaza, and after 3 months we start stabilizing the situation in Gaza, and even bringing back all the citizens in the south to live in the towns. The citizens of the north are not going to go back. They will not be willing to go back with this threat in the north. So at a certain point, we'll have to deal with this. When? We'll see. It doesn't depend only on us. It depends also on Hezbollah that shot now 30 rockets on Israeli towns in the north. So it's not just about us. But even if it is our decision, I can hardly see a reality where this war ends without us confronting Hezbollah. And this is why it's going to be a very long war.
Right. Ariel, I believe you also wrote a little bit about the buildup of force on the northern border. Do you have any comments on that issue?
On what, Moshe? Sorry?
No, it was going to me.
I was going the same question to Ariel. He spoke about that in his article earlier today.
Yeah. So Amir actually quite explained what's going on in the north, but to talk about it very broadly, what's going on in the north is quite complicated and sensitive. Israel and actually the United States as well made the decision in the beginning of the war not to have a second front, or at least try not to have a second front. So what we do see in the north is actually, let's say, a quarter war, if you want, or a war in a very low level. Because if we compare it to regular days in Israel, we would never see daily attacks coming from Lebanon and Israel hitting back, what we do have in the last months. But at the same time, you cannot compare the effort that the military effort that Israel is putting in the south as it's putting in the north. But still, and it's a very important but. Israel is fighting back against Hezbollah in the north, killing about 100 Hezbollah terrorists that we know about until now, bombing its infrastructure in the border, and actually pushing back Hezbollah a little bit from the northern border of Israel. At any moment, Israel is ready with huge force in the northern border, that in case Nasrallah will decide to to begin a war, so we are ready. And that tells you that this risk to have another front is still here, but at least he will not be able to surprise us as Hamas were able to do on the first day of the war in October 6th.
And what do you make of Nasrallah's speech on Friday? How relevant are those speeches? I think he has another speech coming up. Is there such a thing that he declares war or indicates his battle plans in a speech? Should we be paying attention to what he says?
So what I take is, a very famous American quote, which is, if you want to shoot, don't talk. So as long as he's talking and not shooting so much, I'm good with it. I think he's going to have another speech, as you said, because he's under pressure by Hamas and by those barbaric extremists, because he is, from their point of view, talking too much and not shooting enough, which again is very, very, very good for us in Israel. So I think Hezbollah, the fact is that we are now a month into the war, and he is still, thanks God, he is not opening a full war with Israel. That's good for us. I can't tell you, Moshe, at the moment what will happen in a few weeks, or after we will defeat Hamas. Maybe then we will decide to open a war from our will and destroy many of Hezbollah capabilities to shoot into Israel. I don't know. That's definitely an option on the table. But at the same time, as you know very well, Israel is not going to a full cycle war in Israel, and America as well doesn't want us to do that. If I can say one word about the diplomatic maneuvering that Israel is doing in this month, because naturally we are talking about the military war, which is definitely the most important. But at the same time, and especially that I'm talking now with American audience, it has to be said that for us to succeed in this war, we, from diplomatic point of view, we have to have America with us, and therefore any kind of supporting the administration to keep helping Israel to fight back against those thousands that demonstrated in Washington last Saturday, or who are making too much noise in American media or in American social networks. All of that is very important. President Biden, I don't know, I don't mind, whether you did vote or did not vote for him. But for us, from our point of view in Israel, President Biden did a very good job in supporting us for the first day. He is under pressure from his circles to go to a ceasefire and all that stuff. His heart is not there. He wants to keep helping us. But for that, I think it would be very helpful if Americans will put pressure against those in America who doesn't want to help us. In other words, will help Biden or will push Biden to keep helping us as much. I know there's going to be a demonstration, I think today in New York, and if I'm not wrong, next week in Washington. As much as there will be more people in those two demonstrations, as much as there will be more activity of Americans in the social networks, in the media, in the streets for Israel, that will help us a lot, because we need this moral support and this diplomatic support. That is a guarantee, a significant guarantee for us to keep fighting here for months, because as Amir said, it's going to be very long. It's a very complicated war. It's not 6-day war. Maybe it's 6 months war. So for that, we must keep having a moral support and publicly support in America, because it will give the army here the power to keep fighting against Hamas.
Ariel Kahana, senior commentator for the Israel Hayom, thank you so much for joining us. General Avivi, can we go back to you for some closing thoughts, please?
Yes, as Ariel said, we have to realize this is going to be a long war. I think, talking to the troops, talking with the commanders. On Friday, I spent the evening, I ate Shabbat dinner in the Yalom unit with all the brigadier generals retired of the combat engineers. We discussed at length the issue of the tunnels. And I must say that the morale is high. We have many solutions and high readiness to deal with all this infrastructure that there is inside Gaza. And everybody wants to do the job and really win decisively this war. I can tell everybody, and I say it again and again, yes, it's going to be long. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, we'll have casualties. But at the end of this war, I think it will be a golden era for Israel and the Jewish people. So we have a lot to look forward to.
General Vivi, thank you so much. Ariel, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our viewers, all of our supporters for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll be back 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We will be joined again by General Avivi as well as the IDF spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conrica. So please come back, join us tomorrow. Stay strong, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.